Fantasy football to many is just a daily hobby that they spend a lot of their free time on. It allows a user to conduct the same types of trades and negotiations as do multi-million-dollar player agents from New York to Los Angeles. Today, I'm going to inform you on the history of fantasy football, and then we will discuss how to get started with your own league, and then finally the effects of fantasy football. The fantasy football was created on October 1962 in the Milford Plaza in New York City by a man named Wilfred Winkenbach. The reason it wasn't so famous was because at the time the Cuban Missile Crisis was going on. Scott Sterling and George Ross also have contribution to the fantasy football, and then the rules were laid down at the hotel. How to get started. You can pick any of your sport website of your choice. You can either pick Yahoo Sports, ESPN, NFL, DraftKings. You can either create a league and invite friends, join one with random people around the country, or accept an invitation for a league that you were invited to. And then once you joined a league, you can draft your players onto your team. And then finally, you set your lineup each week against different opponents in your league. And then you can also trade and acquire players off of free agency while you're in the league. The effects of fantasy football. Fantasy football has had like a big effect on the game. Many people think that it's good effects. Some people think that it's bad. One of the good effects is that many fantasy players spend more money on NFL-related things. So, like, more fantasy players will buy tickets, any NFL gear. And then many football players actually believe that it ruined football. They think that many people focus more on fantasy points and wins and all that stuff. And then this is actually a player who got some backlash from, because if you can you read that? It says, "If I ever see you in public," I can't really read it.
We're fist fighting over your fantasy performance this year.
And then this is the fantasy player that tweeted back at him. And then the video.
We crushed it last week, buddy.
Me.
You scored 2 touchdowns. I put you in my lineup.
We did it. Without NFL.com fantasy football, what would friends talk about?
You fly often?
Yes. NFL.com fantasy football. Fun, free, and easy.
We crushed it last week, buddy.
Me.
You scored 2 touchdowns.
All right, and then finally, my recap. We talked about the history of fantasy football. We also talked about how to get started with your own league. And then finally, we talked about the effects of fantasy football. Thank you.